everybody, and welcome to the November 13th Trips and Traps. Andy Serling, joined by Richie Migliore.
And we got a great show today. We got a little bit of everything, and we got 3 turf races, 3 dirt races. We got mud, we got sprints, we got long. You did a good job picking these races out.
Gee, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Actually, I thought it was a fun week. I agree. There were a lot of things going on, and one of the things going on, of course, was how the track was playing, because very much until middle of the day, it's in dispute how much of Saturday the rail was clearly not the place to be, and we want to talk about that quite a bit, and we'll also talk about some trips and some turf races, one that seems to have been missed. But we'll start out with a race, the first of 2 races we're going to show that ultimately turned out to be meltdowns of a sort. And we want to talk about the favorite, Sean and Matt, who finished 4th. And there's no doubt, Richie, that Sean and Matt was unlucky in this race.
Yeah, well, you can see here. I mean, he had to take up at the start. Horses broke in and out, inside him, outside of him, and basically took him out of the race. And then he kind of got in a nice rhythm, although obviously he got knocked back at the start.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion because the truth is this race completely fell apart, though frankly this horse, Invasion Point, who I imagine was a big price, he was 23-1, he ran extremely well when you consider the dynamics of the race because he was down, not on the inside, but not that far off the rail. I think it was a wider the better thing. This race fell apart at the end, and I think the dynamics of the race, believe it or not, helped Sean and Matt in the long run.
Yeah, now if he could have just broken cleanly and eased back out of the race, although I'm sure he would have been a lot more
He's
involved.
more of a speed type. That's my question. My question with him is, how good a bet is he going forward? But he did run well in here, but is he going to set himself up as a bit of a trap? Because everybody saw this trouble. It's obvious.
Yeah, no, everybody saw the trouble. Now, he's a horse, too, that, like you said, wants to lay closer. So maybe if he gets away cleanly next time on a fair track, is that something you would look for?
Oh, on a fair track, I think he'll probably be fine. The funny thing is he's dressed up by riding a gold rail in his last start where he won, which was why we were a little bit against him. He definitely ran a winning race in here. You can't argue that. And I feel like that in cashing in here, I was a little bit lucky. I don't think you can dispute that. My question is, and this is a hard puzzle, and you're not a handicapper per se in the situation, is as a handicapper, what are we supposed to do with a horse like this who got helped by dynamics but obviously hurt by his trouble?
Well, yeah, that's the question I was trying to get at. Like, now, if it's a fair track and he does his best running up close, he's probably going to get away cleanly next time. I mean,
this was
one
not
of those
him.
things.
This was somebody else.
Right, exactly. Although, if you watch the race, the 2 horses that dead heated for the win came down the middle of the track making that late run. And he was basically riding in their wake behind them. He just wasn't able to overcome the start.
Yeah, I think that it's a bit of a good and bad situation. And I think the next time he runs, if you get a race where there's a lot of speed, he's probably in trouble. If you get a race where he is in a position to control, he'll be in a much better spot. But I don't think that people should just look and say, oh, he completely stayed out of the start. He was much the best. If he didn't stay out of the start and he found the right trip, he might have won with another perfect trip.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's a good point. I'm curious to see when we run back if he's a horse that's going to go revert back to his speedy tactics, or maybe they found out something about him and allow him to drop out.
Well, that's another thing. They show that at least he can be competitive rating. And I think the other discussion is when you write horses down that are troubled trip horses, you don't just automatically bet them the next time they're entered. You still want to handicap the race, but you want to move them up or you want to evaluate the trouble. But don't just say, oh, I saw Sean and Matt have trouble last time. I like him wherever he's running. That's not going to work.
Yeah, something else to add into your arsenal to help pick your winners.
Right. Trip handicapping is using trips to your benefit, not necessarily betting horses blind. Now, we want to talk about the 4th race on November 7th, and this was a case where Rod Ortiz was riding his first race of the day. The rail had been clearly established to be dead. He had a horse breaking from an outside post that absolutely should have won, and for some reason, he deliberately marries himself to the rail, Richie.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point. I think it's just not paying attention because this was as strong a bias as I can remember in a very long time. You really wanted to avoid the rail at all costs, and he went completely the opposite way. He made sure he got himself to the fence by the middle of the backstretch and was never going to leave it.
And, I mean, he deliberately goes down. You're going to see it coming in the stretch. He has to actually, steady briefly to go down to the inside. And Erod is one of the best riders in the country. But he's a young rider, and he's just clearly not paying attention to the situation. And there are other races where he went down the inside as well. And part of being a top rider, as you know, Richie, is paying attention when you're not riding.
Yeah, I mean, listen, conventional race riding, you want to get to the rail, save as much ground as possible, but not in a situation like this. Now, I don't blame him here for tucking in. You don't want to be 4 or 5 wide the entire turn. Once he gets up inside of the 5 horse, I think he needed to start looking at his options to ease out, and he did have an opportunity to do that.
Well, there's no doubt about it, and he deliberately, once again, and you're going to see it very clearly as you're seeing him rally inside of horses right now. You're going to see a situation where the 2B, who's in front of him, is going to drift over. And Rod, at this point, easily could have eased out. There's no reason not to. Instead, he waits for that horse, and he forces the horse's head in. And the other thing that's interesting is the winner is out in the middle of the track. He's going to drift towards the inside. When he drifts over and Rod gets outside of him, he almost beats him.
Well, I think this is the clear illustration of just how strong that bias was, because he drifts back over to the fence. Now Irad's got to drift to the outside, and once they swap positions, you can see how much ground he makes up.
It's staggering, and this is not a gripe. I actually picked the winner. I don't think I bet the race. The winner was 4-5, but this is just a case where he made rider error, and I think it cost him the victory in this race. And I think, once again, we wanted to also use that race in illustration, as you said, of the rail.
Well, and you know, you said it, and I agree. I think Irad Ortiz is one of the best riders in the country. He's a super talent, a kid that's going to have a lot of good years ahead of him. This is something that you learn with experience. When you get to the room, you've got to really focus in on what's going on before you even ride and pay attention and take advantage of it.
And, you know, Irad thinks about what Ramon would do, and I can guarantee you one thing. Ramon Dominguez was watching the races when he wasn't riding, especially if he wasn't riding the fourth race. He was always paying attention.
Boy, I miss those days of going into the room and Ramon would be there already and just doing his homework and be in that zone. It's a shame that we don't have that talent with us right now anymore.
Well, he's a rider people can learn from, and that's one of Irad's strong suits is trying to emulate Ramon, and this is a clear-cut example. He also cost himself a win because he would have had a win in this race if he had been paying more attention. Now we'll go to the second race, November 8th, and at this point in the day, a lot of us feel the rail was still not the place to be. Some people think the track was fair all day. I'm not 100% sure, but Wild Dinah, who's in here with the red hat, he'll end up down towards the rail, and he rallies when he gets off it. Dispersion, he ends up, in my opinion, being too aggressively ridden early, and I'm certainly interested in your opinion, and he ends up down the rail. This horse who finished second, Kickoff, probably ran the best race. I'm not sure what the hurry with him was, and this race fell apart. The winner was a long shot firster that came from way back dead last.
Well, let's start with Kickoff because he did break out, you know, and I always say young horses especially, they run to empty space. So he had to get his attention and get his mind in the race. But now you've done that. Now settle. You know, they're going fast. This was an extremely fast pace for him.
He's outside. It's a great spot.
Now you just have to sit and wait and bide your time. Let's go now to Wild Dinah, who wound up third. Moving up, I got to forgive Manny Franco a little bit here because he didn't get off very well. Okay. And I think that limits your options immediately. So he's basically playing the hand dealt him. If I had to pick on Dispersion, I would pick on for being A, too aggressive, and B, winding up on the fence because he had options.
Yeah, it seems like maybe it was instructions, and you don't want to be too tough on riders because you don't know the instructions they were given. But it seemed like he was forcing the issue, which isn't usually Irad's style, which makes me think maybe there were instructions. I want to know why Kickoff is put into a drive a half mile to go in this race. How does he not know the horses in front of him are going fast? He has to know his horse is going fast. Wild Dinah was getting shuffled a little bit, and Manny, I thought, stuck to the rail a little too much.
Yeah, but, you know, when I watched it a few times, I just don't see a lot of his options. He can't clear the one's heels. I just think he's playing a bad hand, and it all goes back to the start.
Just roll the race, guys.
So I just wonder, you know, what was he going to do here? Tip out now? He's got a wall of horses in front of him. So I'm gonna give Manny Franco a pass. I really don't think he had any options. I don't understand why Kickoff was put into such a hard drive so early. If you even look at the body language of the riders in front of you, they're all going for home already. They're all riding. They're off the bridle. Let them come back to you. And the horse that winds up taking advantage of the whole thing down the middle of the track is Il Campari with Channing Hill, who's just galloping along last, tipped to the outside, and ran by a bunch of tired horses.
Yeah, he did, because they were tired mostly from chasing the pace, and I agree. I'm not knocking El Campari as a first-time starter. Who knows with him? He was entered for the turf. Wild Dinah, once he gets off the inside, he starts motoring. Now, the race was kind of collapsing, but I do think it's an example that the rail still might not have been the place to be. Jose does a good job of trying to keep Kickoff off it, but he just used his horse too much too soon.
Well, that'll lead me to this question for you. Out of the two, because they both had trips, obviously Kickoff moving way too aggressively, and Wild Dinah being shuffled around inside, if they both wind up in the same race, I understand pace dynamics, the way the race might develop is going to play into it. but who would you prefer?
I would always prefer kickoff. I'm a big race dynamics. I think the biggest part of trip handicapping to me are race dynamics. Races are frequently run, and this race is a great example of it, by how they are run. And to me, a little steady here, a little trouble there is not that big a deal. As you know, in riding horses, you got in trouble. You know, you just get in trouble in the nature of the flow. It costs you a little bit, but race dynamics can completely alter horses' talents, and you'll see situations where the best horses run 6th and 7th because they ran to dynamics.
Yeah, just used too hard into the toughest part of the race.
Yes, absolutely. I think kickoff ran extremely well here. Time to go to the turf. And in this turf situation, I have two things I want to talk about. The two fresh Feline, who everybody saw the trouble, and I don't think it's Junior's fault, and I want you to talk about that. And I wanted Richie's opinions of Run of the River. I don't want to bet this horse back. I just think this is a horse that makes riders look bad. Fresh Feline is down towards the inside. Run of the River's out here. I think Run of the River's the kind of horse that just gave Jose Ortiz fits in here.
Yeah, I mean, she broke to the outside, running to that empty space. He's trying to get her down over close to horses and hopefully covered up in behind horses. But just look at her whole demeanor. Her ears are pinned. She's just not happy. Her head's up in his face. She's not going to corner well here because he did have an opportunity maybe to cut in behind horses. She's difficult.
Yeah, when I first watched it, I'm thinking, what is Jose Ortiz doing? But then I'm watching the race, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, he's not doing anything. You know, he's riding a horse, and he's going, this horse is just going to make me look bad.
Yeah, and essentially she did, and she just never seemed happy. I mean, even when you watch her expression, her ears are pinned flat back against her head. When they turn for home, it's a really clear illustration of it.
Even now.
Yeah,
you can even see it now as she's outside the two.
Just her body language is she's just not enjoying herself. She's not happy.
Yeah, and it's not like he's fighting her. I mean, he's fighting her a little bit, but it's not like he's tugging and pulling. She just can't seem to get into a rhythm, and she's got talent, and I imagine she's a tough handle for Shug McGay, but he's a patient trainer, and I think he can give her some time, and she's a horse that has some talent if she can get over these personal issues. Fresh Feline, you feel as though she lugs in a bit.
You know, if you go back and watch her race in Saratoga, where G. Mirage gave her an unbelievable ride, splitting horses and getting up and winning, you know, I think she has a tendency to lean to the inside, and it kind of gives the rider, limits his options, I guess is the best way to put it. Now, you can see Junior's doing everything right as far as I'm concerned, because you got to save ground on this turf course. Now he's looking to come out, but you can see she's not an easy steer. And he's like, well, maybe I'll go back here, and obviously she's stuck, no place to go. He kind of eats her. But even here, you see the way he's breaking his right hand up the rein, trying to straighten her up. And he's kind of got to pull her out, you know, from behind horses.
Well, she's not like she even flies by the horse in front of her when she gets outside. She may be a bit like Seek again, where she's happier rallying among horses as she did in Saratoga.
Yeah, well, you're not having to constantly correct her to keep a straight course. I think that's why she's, running down in there, and that's why it makes it look like, well, you know, he kind of got himself stuck. I don't think she's helping him out much.
Okay, let me ask you a question. When you're a rider, do you want the challenge, or are you afraid a horse like that makes you look bad?
Well, you would want the challenge with her because she's obviously talented.
Right.
And she's got to turn a foot. And a lot of times it's going to break better for you than that, and it's going to actually make you look good because you know she's brave enough to run through anywhere. So to me, I would want to ride her.
Yeah, she just seems like a horse, and I agree. She has talent. And John Sheriff's horses are running extraordinarily well. Just like last year, he really gets them ready for the later part of the season. We'll see how that progresses. But clearly, that was a horse that was unlucky because all the running by the winner who ran well was being done while she was totally bottomed up.
She was stymied, and you can't regain that momentum when a horse has got a full head of steam going by you.
The next horse we're going to look at is the one horse Seeking, and we want to talk about the start of this race, and I think this is a great example of what Richie likes to talk about getting your position going forward, and she needed to do that, and by not doing it, she absolutely got taken out of the race.
Yeah, and when you have post one on this turf course, you have to use it to your advantage, because if you don't, you're going to get shuffled back. There's a corner. You're coming out of the chute. The corner does come out to you, so you've got to absolutely be more aggressive to make sure you hold your spot. And I think if Junior had been more aggressive in the gate, he'd have been where the gray horse is.
Been here somewhere.
Exactly. Or
instead
following
of back here.
Her. Now you're stuck in behind horses. Actually, now you've got to come out around a horse, so you're not even having the rail position anymore. And it's a slow pace, and you're basically your fate is sealed.
This is a horse, and listen, it's not. This is, as you said, you can't come out of the gate in a horse like this and say, I'm going to eat the horse at the start. You've got to come out with the opposite opinion. Yes, she's a closer, but she's going to settle in behind horses, but you've got to inch her forward to get that position. I think it's clear, Richie.
Well, one thing, riding with Angel Cordero for a number of years, he was always aggressive out of the gate because his philosophy was, and I agree with it, I don't want to be stuck behind horses slower than my horse.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting point. Of course, we saw that with Angel. And right, you can see horses that are aggressively ridden. It doesn't mean they're going to lead. They'll settle into their stride. But as you say, you don't want to get put behind the 8-ball. And now he goes up inside of horses, and we're going to stop this again because what happens is what always happens the break. The gray horse has trouble steadying the break and steadies right into the face of Seeking. This is a trip that went from bad to worse.
Yeah, and you absolutely have no options. So now as the race is starting, when you need to be going forward, now you're steadying and have to go backwards.
Look at this.
And basically you're eliminated. And the fact that she was able to finish 5th and not beaten that badly speaks volumes. And this, to me, out of all the races we watched today, out of the six replays, this is the horse that if I was wagering, I would bet back.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. This is and of course the horse who wins is the second choice, who's sitting right on the pace, even though a little bit wide, but better to be on the pace and wide than to be shuffled out of the race. And now this is a horse, and even here he's in a little bit of traffic with her. Once she finally finds a little bit of run, she's really running. And in the gallop out, she was going by horses. This horse Seeking has talent, and she also has a slow pace. She just needs a cleaner trip, and she's going to win.
A clean trip, just get some sort of position. They're going to go a half in 51-4. You need to be somewhere in the race. Needed to be seeking some position early.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A nightmare trip for that horse. The last horse we're going to look at is a kind of obvious horse, and we're going to talk about the 8 black type. This is the 7th race on Monday's card, and this is one, I know the winner Iron Power won by 6 lengths near. You can see being put in a little bit tight at the start, but not a big deal, and a horse that doesn't have much speed, but I feel like Irad got a bit unlucky here, but I think it got to be a little frustrating for him, Richie.
Yeah, no, he definitely got unlucky. And, interestingly enough, one of the big topics of conversation lately has been starts and riders being sloppy at the start. If you go back and watch this replay, Angel Serpa on the horse St. Pierre outside of black type does exactly what you're supposed to do when your horse breaks in. He straightened that horse up as good and as firmly as you possibly can, and I like to see that. So even though black type broke a step slow, he didn't get sawed off at the break, but now it's a slow pace, horse on the leads, galloping along, Iron Power, and he's basically stuck behind horses that he's faster than.
Yeah, this is right, exactly what you're talking about. And this was a race that even though Iron Power won, the other horses that finished, second came from behind him. But I agree, he gets put into a bottle. Now, I don't know what you're supposed to do with him, and Christophe Clement obviously wants to be covered up, but it just feels, once again, Richie, if you can find a way to get some position going forward at the start, you don't always get put in these kind of predicaments.
Sometimes it's not an easy thing to do because some horses pull, and if you let them do too much out of the gate, then they rank on you. This horse is not a horse that pulls. You could see he's about as settled and relaxed as can be. He's got a super long hold. Horse is actually pricking his ears in behind horses. This horse should be very easy to place because he's very tractable.
Well, he never really sulks in this race either, and he gets in a ton of trouble in here, and he still is crying to run. And in the gallop out, he blew by the winner in a matter of yards, and even though he lost by so much, what is Irad going to do here, though? Because he's trying to wheel outside, and he's got that horse in the pink outside of him, and that horse ends up stalling. He doesn't clear off, so he's got nowhere to go.
He doesn't stop enough, and he doesn't go on enough.
Right.
And basically, he hangs him in behind horses here. And, I think this is clearly just an unlucky ride. I don't know that he could have done a lot different at that stage. Although, I have a question about when he does finally find a seam.
Look at this.
If he had ridden harder, do you think he maybe could have caught that horse for second or just was going to run out of time
I
anyway?
think he ran out of time, but, man, he got there close, and that horse is running fastly and smoothly. This is a good horse, black type. This wasn't a bad field. And Iron Power's a nice horse, but I know he lost by over 6 lengths in here. This would have been a lot different if he had gotten clear.
It was such a clear illustration of completely opposite trips. One horse gets away cleanly, gallops along in the lead, relax, and has, an easy time of it. And black type, who's stuck, looking for him, searching, and finishes well. If you flip-flop the trips, obviously I think black type is as good, if not better, than Iron Power.
Yeah, but it also shows the value of speed and using your speed as a weapon. And people who use their speed as a weapon get rewarded, especially in these turf races. We see slow paces, and speed horses are doing well in them, Richie.
Yeah, well, especially it's a 7/8 turf course. It's hard for the closers because when you got a closer, you don't want to get them stopped, so you tend to rally wide. It's hard to go wide on this course and win, and then we see what happens if you try to stay inside. A lot of times you eat it. So speed and position are absolutely key to success on the turf course at Aqueduct.
They keep you out of trouble. Well, we sometimes have trouble finding races, and we can use your help. It's trips and traps at NYRank.com.